Hello, and welcome to the Buena Vista Project, a podcast about Mexican American history, politics, cultura, y más, coming to you from San Antonio, the Mexican American capital of the United States. I'm your co-host, Elaine Ayala.
And I'm your co-host, Michael Quintanilla. Thank you for joining us. Today, it's just the two of us, Elaine, just the two of us discussing aloud what so many of you perhaps may have been thinking about and talking about with your family, co-workers, friends, and neighbors. The meteorite fall of once beloved labor and civil rights leader, Cesar Chavez.
It was a huge collapse of his legacy, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to feel about the quick response by government, nonprofit organizations, scholarship programs, march organizations that so quickly have fallen away. But I was moved, even a little bit satisfied, by the way so many leaders and groups responded to the New York Times investigation that uncovered evidence Chavez groomed and sexually assaulted women and girls during his long career as president of the United Farm Workers.
Yeah, and for certain, it was swift, right? But rightfully so. And it showed how serious the allegations and evidence were. Some groups started responding even before the story was published. We were talking about it.
Yes, because everybody was getting hints that this story was coming up, and we're trying to do stories ahead. And then the New York Times moved ahead its publication online before it got into the hard copy.
I remember people were asking us, and that theories were coming up, or, other assumptions. But the Cesar Chavez Foundation began asking its affiliates to cancel annual events and marches commemorating the man. I mean, we canceled our parade here.
Yes. So one assessment of this debacle has stayed with me. It was an online comment describing the quick response as a master class on how to respond when someone is credibly accused of crimes such as rape and pedophilia. And a master class.
Yes, I know. That's amazing, right?
I think a Latino leadership can take, including the Cesar Chavez Foundation, they knew this was coming anyway, and they just stood up and said, we must stop.
Yeah. And if you somehow don't know yet, Chavez was canceled in the most exacting way in March, even before the New York Times investigation. And this was a years-long investigation,
5 years,
I believe, right?
5 years.
5 years, my goodness. Before they uncovered the evidence, some of it found in Chavez's own archives. Documents showed the UFW discussed allegations as well, Elaine.
Here's the other bit of evidence that really got me.
Mm-hmm.
A victim, a young girl at the time, wrote Chavez a letter that shows that he not only groomed her, but had sex with her. I saw a copy of stationery on which she wrote. It was devastating. The girls who were his victims were children of farm workers and activists around the movement.
I wonder how young they were.
Well, I think the youngest one that I read about, Chavez knew of her when she was 8, and she was around 12, 13 when he assaulted her.
That's right. So how are members of Chavez's staffs, long-term activists devoted to the FW, and to Chavez reacting to this, Elaine? What are you hearing?
Well, first I have to say that I covered Chavez early and the UFW early on in my career when I met him for the first time during a union gathering in the Rio Grande Valley. And just like you imagined, he was just inspirational, almost saint-like in his presence, and you could sense how much he was trusted and beloved by not just the union leaders who were traveling with him, but the rank and file and people in the community that joined the march. Today, some of those devotees that I know and quoted through the years aren't saying much. I've reached out to several people who worked for the Farm Workers Union, and they did not respond. It must be so painful, so shameful, or frankly, maybe they're still trying to figure out how to move forward from this and to serve the farm workers' cause. I think they may be quiet because there will be lawsuits against the UFW, probably against the Cesar Chavez Foundation.
Yeah. Indeed, Cesar Chavez, I think, is complicated terrain, and maybe that's why we must walk with it, talk about it honestly. I never covered him as a reporter, but I grew up in a world shaped by the myth and the man, right?
And that word myth is so appropriate to this story because I think the UFW created a myth or allowed a myth to arise during all his fasting, during all of his work with Robert F. Kennedy, with the Kennedys in general, who were big supporters. He was sort of viewed like a Mahatma Gandhi almost with his fasts.
That's why it's so difficult right now. And in recent years, especially with the reporting, including the New York Times, the reporting has revisited his legacy with a sharper, sometimes unforgiving lens, if we could say that. And we've watched a familiar pattern unfold. So a Latino figure held up as a symbol, as you say, then taken apart. So now we're really talking about how we have honored an imperfect leader.
Right.
But we can't erase the people part of that movement and what they marched for. That's so important. Moving forward means telling the whole story, the victories, the contradictions, the humanity.
Very well said. Very well said.
So that the cause of justice for workers, and especially the women, Elaine, who have always held these movements together. I have found the women.
It is always the women. In the Chicano movement, you won't find their names on founding documents, but they were there and they were crucial to every movement.
That's right. And it's the women. It hasn't, they shouldn't be diminished by the fall of one man.
That's right. And I have to tell you that there's a book I wrote about 10, maybe 12 years ago. It was by an LA Times longtime reporter named Miriam Powell, Pawel.
Yes,
you probably remember.
Yes, I do.
And she wrote 2 books on Chavez. One that I wrote about was The Union of Their Dreams. And it was about, in part, the fallacies of Chavez and others who covered for him. And at the time, she had uncovered that he was paranoid. He was afraid that other people in union leadership would somehow surpass him. He fired some. They were apparently too good for their jobs. And then there were other crazy, now they're calling it cult-like. I don't know if that was the term used at the time of the book, but I remember reading that he was so about control of everything that went on to the union. Even if it was growing in size, he still insisted on opening the mail. And there were other criticisms about how he handled money and how he treated people. And at the time, there was a group of people around him who were very, very defensive about all criticism of it.
So all this, what we're talking about, it just means that, I guess, remembering that a movement is bigger than any single figure.
That's right.
And that our responsibility is to keep pushing the work forward with clarity, with humility, and above all, with truth. So, Elaine, any closing thoughts?
A couple of things. And this first one will get pushed back, but it's a comment that's being talked about in hushed tones among women, I know. Dolores Huerta.
Yes.
Our hearts go out to her for the pain that she endured all of these years. She reported recently, however, that she was coerced into sex by Cesar Chavez one time. and raped by him also one time.
Mm.
She said those 2 occasions led to 2 pregnancies. And that's the story that some women that I've talked to are having a hard time believing. But here's another observation that is more positive in a way. I wish the nation had moved as quickly on the Jeffrey Epstein files and all the pedophiles and rapists named in them, including the President of the United States, Donald Trump. So I can tell you the first thing you should do is read the New York Times Chavez investigation. If you don't have a subscription, remember the Times allows you a few stories a month for free. Read it before you read anything else.
Yes, that's perfectly said. And I guess I'd like to close with an excerpt from the Times investigation that has stayed with the both of us. Miss Murguia, her first name is Ana, and Miss Rojas, her first name is Deborah, 2 of the women who appear prominently in the Times investigation, both of whom are now, I believe, 66, Elaine, and were daughters of longtime organizers who had marched in rallies alongside Mr. Chavez. He used the privacy of his California office to frequently molest Miss Murguia, according to her. He had known her since she was 8 years old. She became so traumatized that she attempted to end her life multiple times by the age of 15. Imagine that. I wanted to die. She's quoted in that story.
It is a moving passage in the story. I encourage you to read it. You can find this and other episodes of our podcast at Buena Vista Project.com, as well as on our channels on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music.
Yes, and we want to thank you for joining us in this plática.
Until next time.
Hasta la Buena Vista, baby.